Imagine losing your children, your job, and your reputation in an instant and being branded a monster by people you once called friends. That was the grim reality Tonya Craft faced when she was accused of a heinous crime. It was a trial that rocked a small town and captivated a nation.
It's been called a witch hunt. A beloved kindergarten teacher from rural Georgia was accused of the unthinkable.
I did not and have not sexually abused any child.
Charged with 22 counts of child molestation and abuse. The accusers, 3 young girls, one of them her very own daughter. The prosecution argued that inappropriate touching took place at a play date and sleepovers at Tonya's house.
I said, "Are you 100% sure that this happened?" She stopped everything she did and looked me dead in the eye and said, "I know it did, Daddy."
The defense maintained these were false allegations brought on by vindictive parents. One that was upset over Tonya's discipline style, the other over her decision to hold their daughter back from first grade.
There are 3 children that believe things happened to them that did not happen.
The trial divided the tiny southern town.
Something had to have happened to these children for this much to come out.
How it happened, I don't know, but it has happened. And unfortunately, these children are just as much of a victim as I am.
After 2 years of fighting for her freedom, the jury handed Tonya her fate.
Count number 22, not guilty.
22, not guilty! Woo! Not guilty on anything!
Tonya was vindicated, but had lost everything. Her house, her job, and her children. The day after the verdict, Tonya spoke with me exclusively.
Your daughter testified for the prosecution against you. And just from a mom's point of view, an emotional point of view, to witness your daughter on that stand. Now, you haven't seen her, except for the time you've seen her in the courthouse. What was that like for you?
That was the absolute hardest thing that I've ever experienced. It absolutely broke my heart.
The jury foreman says not guilty 22 times. What were you feeling?
It wasn't a victory. There's nobody that wins in this situation. My whole heart had been taken and I got half of it back.
And joining me now is Tonya Craft. Tonya, nice to see you again.
You as well.
Can you take us back to 2008, that day the detectives came to your door and leveled those accusations against you, those charges? What was your immediate reaction?
When the doorbell rang and I had 2 detectives that were throwing these horrible allegations and my children had their face smushed against the door window trying to figure out what was going on, I was listening, but I really couldn't understand what they were saying. I immediately had to figure out what to do with my children. My father came and took them away from what I told them was an adult situation. And to this day, whenever I hear a doorbell, I have a very physical reaction to it because it reminds me of the day that I didn't see my children for the last time, and because I didn't know what was going to happen, I didn't get to say goodbye.
And you went literally from beloved teacher to monster within one day. What was the lowest point for you? This went on for 2 years before the final verdict came in.
Right. The lowest point was whenever my daughter was forced to testify against me, and she was forced. And my daughter's bubbly. She has a wonderful personality, and she was a shell of a person. And I hadn't seen her in 2 years. And as a mother, to not be able to protect my child and for her to be forced to do that was unbearable. And that was the one time that I broke down and cried and literally thought I was going to physically get sick during the trial.
When she testified?
Yes.
Was forced to testify. Well, the jury did acquit you on all of the charges, and you blame the investigators and the accusers' parents for manipulating the children, for putting those thoughts in their head.
As we talked about and showed in the trial, these children were told things happened to them that did not happen by parental figures and people that they trusted. You couple that with interviews that took place that were deplorable. That's not even a good enough term or a bad enough term. But these children were asked over and over, did this happen? Did Tonya do this? They said no, no, 52 times more, until finally the children gave them the answers they wanted to hear.
And yet there are people to this day who do not believe that is what happened, and they live in the town. You never left that town after you were acquitted.
Absolutely not.
Do you ever run into those people who still look at you with suspicion?
I have run into some of the individuals involved in this case. What I will say is, for the most part, the community hugs me. It's the most supportive situation you can have. I ran into one of the families at a cheer competition and they didn't look, and I was there to support my daughter. And one of the other parents I've run into twice. The first time at the mall, and she jumped in front of me and started waving erratically and laughing. And the second time was just about 2 months ago when I was at the movie theater, and she screamed child molester in the middle of the movie theater. And it was very upsetting, and it was upsetting for a couple reasons, just for the fact that she would do that. It's not true. And also that the night before, I had taken my daughter and some of her friends to that same movie theater and was in that very same lobby the night before.
And your daughter could have heard that.
Absolutely.
After the acquittal, you were able to see your children again, your daughter you hadn't seen for the 2 years. Have you mended the relationship with her? What has that been like?
It has been hard, and it's been long, and it's been slow. The first time that I saw my daughter after the trial, and after 2 years, they were back home, but it was a very long process. She would lock her door at night. Eventually, she stopped doing that. Then I would sit at the end of her bed and read because I wanted her to feel comfortable. I didn't need to go and hug her. I wanted to hug her and never let her go, but she needed to come to me. And so one time she kind of, patted and said, "Here, come sit next to me." And for all this time, I would tell her I loved her, and she wouldn't say it back. And one night, I said, "I love you." And she said, "I love you too, Mommy." And so I started crying, and I said, "Thank you." And she said, "I always have." And I said, "I know, and I have too." And from that moment on, not only does that happen, but my son is actually 16 and still calls me Mommy. And for a long time, he wouldn't say Mom. He was very disconnected as well.
Which is wonderful to hear that both children have reconnected with you. But, at the end of the day, you did lose your job. You still have people who look at you as somebody who did a terrible thing. How do you move on? What gives you the strength every day to move on?
Well, lots of prayers and lots of support. And in my trial, I very much became a part of it. I demanded to be in charge, and that has gotten me to where I am today. It will forever affect me, like the doorbell. There are things that are triggers that bring back these emotions, but I'll never teach kindergarten again, and I loved teaching. I absolutely loved it. I lost that, but I'm traveling 5 hours. I've been doing this for almost 4 years now, 5 hours round trip to go to law school. I complete that in spring. I've consulted on cases all over the United States.
Well, we wish you the best with that. We really do, and I so appreciate you spending the time with us. I wish we had more time to talk. Tonya's new memoir, Accused, My Fight for Truth, Justice, and the Strength to Forgive, is on sale now. It is a very long story.